Hi, we're in the studio today at Passiflora, and I'm going to be creating an autumn garden-style hand-tied bouquet with seasonal florals and greens. Let's look first at the supplies that we're going to need to be creating this bouquet. First, we'll be needing a pair of snips, some Oasis tape. We will need rubber bands. I'll just go through everything really quickly so you know what we're working with today. This is a lovely variegated variety of greenery called Bouquet, and I love the burgundy stems. Another green that we'll be using today in the bouquet is olive branch. I love this because it has the kind of dark green on the top and this beautiful silvery aspect to it underneath. We're going to be using some ginkgo, which I picked from a local tree. Might possibly be using some of this pear that I thought was really pretty. It's kind of a wild pear. Some of this beautiful autumn clematis that was growing basically in a weed patch. It'll add a nice little softness and draping form to our bouquet. This is a really pretty peach astilbe. This is a little dried selection of miscanthus grass, which is a local non-native grass. This is a very much a non-native. It's very invasive, but I love the seeds. This is called Japanese knotweed. And we have Physocarpus, which is very pretty. And this really cool spacey little guy called Scabiosa. And another fun yellow one called Billy Balls. We'll also possibly be using this bunny tails. Bunny tails and billy balls. This is going to be our focal flower, if you haven't guessed that already. The focal flower is typically the largest flower, and it will ground the bouquet. Another one that we're going to be using today is ranunculus. This is like a lemony, peachy ranunculus. Beautiful. These are gorgeous. This dyed carnation. You know, carnations have had a bad rap in the past, but they are really making a comeback. All the antique, kind of vintagey looking ones. Definitely one of my favorite things on this table. This is from Dutch Flower Line in New York City. This is a dyed Lisianthus. I'm not sure how they do this, but it really is unbelievable. The veining in this, the purple, the yellow. So it's November 16th and we still have not had frost. So there were a couple little things left in the cutting garden. These foxgloves are going strong. I love them because they have this burgundy throat, which is really beautiful. Couple little tiny pieces of calendula left. So let's get started. The first thing you want to do is make sure that your flower stems and your greens are prepped. So what we've done is we have removed all of the foliage from our flowers and the bottom half of the foliage from our greens. So you can see where we think that we're going to be beginning the armature of the bouquet. We're going to start with the Leucothaway because it's nice and sturdy. It's important to look at the stem, whether it's foliage or flowers, and kind of see what direction it tells you it wants to go. I'm actually using a mirror across from me to see what it looks like. It's a very helpful tip. Next, I'm going to be adding the ginkgo someone so graciously gave to me without me asking them. Married to college. When you're building an autumn bouquet, you should be picking some foliage, some local foliage. It adds something extra. Even if you have roses that you've bought from the grocery store and you're throwing together your bouquet, go out and pick some of the beautiful autumn foliage that's still left to incorporate, and it will change the whole feeling. Not 100% sure I'm going to be doing the pear in this, but we're gonna see what it looks like. We're gonna give it a try. While you're holding your framework here, just try to keep your hands a little bit loose. It will help your hands from fatiguing so quickly. A lot of designers recommend designing in 3s, 5s, and in odd numbers. I don't think that you have to do that. We have a ginkgo in here, we have 2 ginkgo, and I think it's totally fine. But I do think about balancing as I'm building. So I put a pear here, I placed a pear here, and I'm going to place another one over here just to kind of balance. Next we'll be adding a little bit of olive, just for a different texture, a little different color to add. I had an art teacher in high school that always said, contrast creates interest. And that pops into my head all the time. His name was Mr. Boso. Now that we've created the armature for our bouquet, with the greens and the foliage, I'm going to start incorporating some of the florals in with this. I'm going to start with a couple of the dried flowers because I feel like they're kind of something in between leaves and in between flowers. So I'm going to try the Japanese knotweed in here. And now that we've added the Japanese knotweed, I'm going to start adding the Physocarpus. That might be bougainvillea. Yeah, I said this was Physocarpus, but this is bougainvillea, dried bougainvillea. And next, I think I'm going to add miscanthus. So when you're adding this, same concept, you're just adding some texture into the bouquet. And I'm using 5 pieces of this. You can use whatever you think, however much texture you want to add. Okay, I think we're getting somewhere here. One of the goals when you're making a bouquet is to make sure that you have dimension. You don't want it to just be this flat thing. So if you need to adjust any of your foliage or any of your flowers as you're doing it, pull them out, push them in. That's a great thing to do. Just kind of assess and make sure that you're not creating a flat bouquet. So next we're going to start with the focal flowers, which is really fun. And these are the ultimate focal flower. They're so big. So we're going to start kind of putting those in. And they're quite large, a little overwhelming, so I probably won't use all of them. And again, I try to kind of think about not a triangle, but kind of making sure that there's asymmetry. You don't want them to be stacked on top of each other. You don't want them to be, again, all on the same plane. When you have flowers, some buried and some sticking out, it creates much more interest as your eyes travel through the bouquet. Next, I would like to put in some of the carnations. So the chrysanthemum is the focal flower. These are more of kind of the grounding flower. These I like to bury in a little bit more. Still holding my hand loose, you can kind of push it in through your fingers. And sometimes the carnations aren't completely open. You just take your hand and kind of tease it open a little bit. I think I'm liking where this is going. I may add one more carnation. It's always good to have a flower in your bouquet that is a little more whimsical. I would say this, the lisianthus and this miscanthus is kind of some whimsical elements. They're gonna stick out a little higher than some of the other things. This is a scabiosa, which is really a beautiful plant, happens to just have the worst name in the world. Otherwise known as pincushion flower. Sometimes you can also wire them if they're not long enough. On the next tutorial, maybe we can do some wiring. So I did add another chrysanthemums, which rounds it out to 5. I kind of wanted a little more height on this end because I felt like it was getting too flat across. Now we're going to add the ranunculus. The texture of so many of the other things in this are a little bit harsh, and these are so soft and delicate. We're getting close. It's nice to have some flowers down. I kind of sometimes forget about this area in the bouquet, but it's nice to have some flowers down at the base as well. I don't like how there are 3 in a row, so I'm actually going to move that over here. Just because they came from the garden, I feel like I need to add these calendula and foxglove since it is the last hurrah. What I'm going to do first is snip off the stems because they're kind of getting a little bit in my way. The black centers of these are so beautiful. Oh, I love them. Second to last thing we're going to add is, because it's just not quite enough yet, are the foxglove. And I might put those down there, kind of on the edge, making a little collar, a little foxglove collar. Okay, the last thing we're gonna add is the autumn clematis that I foraged. Oh yeah, honestly, this makes the bouquet. And one thing you're gonna probably have to do with this is nestle it behind something because it's so droopy. It doesn't have any stability. I'm gonna add one more thing because I can't control myself. Adding the bunny tails. This doesn't have to be the perfect cut. You can go back and cut it again, but you're just getting a lot of the sticky outies cut back so that we can actually get a rubber band around this. When you have your bouquet trimmed back, this is the back side again. You take your rubber band and you pull it around. You can also do this, if your hand gets really tired, you can do this partway through. So now the rubber band is holding the bouquet, so we can actually put some ribbon on it. So after you're done, you're gonna want to clean up your workspace a little bit and get all the leaves and the wet and everything away because we're gonna be using some really pretty ribbon and you wanna make sure that that's kept clean. The ribbon that I use is from a company called The Lesser Bear. All of her products are hand-dyed silk. We've got this beautiful, rich kind of mustardy color. I actually think that this is the color I would like to use for the ribbon today. This is a really beautiful turquoise. Start in the front of the bouquet, and you're going to go about halfway. You're going to wrap it around the back. And don't tie it, just wrap it again very tightly, as tight as you can, around to the front. And then you're going to tie it into a knot. I think it's also really pretty if you have enough ribbon to do a lovely little bow. And I always like to have one side a little shorter than the other, again, just to create interest. And the very last thing you want to do is just make sure that your stems that you cut before are nice and even and straight. Thank you so much for joining us in the studio today to create this hand-tied autumn bouquet using seasonal florals and foliage. Please stay tuned for more tips, tricks, and tutorials, and thank you so much for joining us today, and please subscribe to our channel.